Welcome to the Have Good Ripple Effect podcast. Let's jump right in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Have Good Ripple Effect podcast. I'm Lisa Even, your host, and I'm pretty excited, maybe even joyful, to be talking about today's topic, joy. For me, joy is probably one of the most important things you can have in your life, and we're going to talk all about it. On future episodes, we're going to talk about how do you get it. And I'll give you some ideas and tips and strategies today to just, crack that iceberg of, gosh, if I were to dream a little and have a little bit more joy in my life, maybe even make joy my job. Yeah, what would that look like? So those are some of the things that we'll be talking about today. Now, if you could imagine me sitting on a three-legged stool, I often use this reference. For me, I really consider life to have three legs, and those are connection, the people that you, surround yourself, you encounter. The second leg would be impact, so your ripple effect. And in other episodes, we've talked about that. And the third one is really joy. Are you having fun doing life? Like, are you having enough joy? And so this three-legged stool, without one of those pieces, like we would topple over. If you imagine me toppling over on my chair. And that's what I want to hit on and dive a little bit deeper today. Like, what is it? Now, for me, my joy journey started 7 or 8 years ago when my husband and I essentially realized we weren't having enough joy. We didn't have enough of it in our lives. And so we decided, well, maybe we could create some. We were sitting on the couch. It was after a really long day of work. I remember that. And almost like watching TV like zombies, right? I was like drinking a glass of wine, eating some popcorn, just like throwing it back. And I look at my husband and I think, we chase a lot of things like work meetings and doctor's appointments. We have so many things scheduled on our calendar, but I wonder if we're chasing the right things. Like we've got when to give our dog her heartburn medicine or heartworm medicine, when to change the furnace filter. But what if we could chase something else? What if we could chase joy? And being the nice and kind and quiet guy he is, he kind of nodded and he was like, yeah, maybe. Like, how do we do it? And I was like, yeah, how do we do that? And I was like, okay, give me a couple of days. I want to think about it. I want to come up with some way to chase and maybe even track our joy. I like to know my return on investment. I'm not great at actually doing math, but I love the idea of being able to look at it and say, are the things that we're doing creating results? And so that's what we did. I bought a whiteboard from Home Depot. I lugged it home and I was like, hi, can you hang this in our bedroom? Like hang it right next to the bed. And he kind of laughed. He's like, people don't have whiteboards in their bedroom. People don't do that. I'm like, well, we do. Could you just hang it right here? Because I think that the first step in creating more joy is to get a list together. Like, I want to go to bed because sometimes that's the only time we're together, dreaming about joy, and I want to create a list. And then I want to wake up and I want to see my list and I want to think about joy like right away in the morning when I am like the most like ready to go. I've got the most energy that I'm going to probably have in the day. Yeah, I want to create our first like joy list. And so we added things that we used to do, things that we wanted to do, things that we were dreaming about doing. And the list was kind of this, smattering of items where we just kind of said, do you remember when we used to be in that volleyball league? Like, we should do that. Do you remember when we went to that one restaurant? What was the name of it? And we would like write down, try to find name of previous restaurant. And our joy list just became almost like a wish list of sorts of things to do. And over time, we moved it from the whiteboard to our calendar. And it was on a paper calendar. And now we track it electronically. I recently wrote a book about joy, and the title is called Joy is My Job. So you can catch more of the in-depth, like, okay, how do I do it? What do I do for this? What if I'm encountering that? All those barriers to joy. And in future episodes, we'll talk about that also. But it became this way for us to give ourselves permission to say, we need more joy in our lives. And here are some things that we think would bring us more of that. Now, I would love to tell you, oh, it was so magical and we transformed our lives in no time. And to an extent, I think we did, just even from a mindset. But we started to take things off of that list when we had, a random Thursday night and we said, okay, we've got an hour. What do we do? And then we would go back to our list and look and say, well, what would only take an hour? Because I don't know about you, but sometimes, let's say we're going to go out to a restaurant for dinner. We spend half of our time going, well, I don't care where we go. Where do you want to go? Oh, I don't care. Where do you want to go? And we spend more time thinking about the thing that we might do, and by the end of it, we're like, well, maybe we should just stay in. Like, that's easier. So that joy list really becomes like that foundation of permission, but also having the list. Now we get creative. Now that we've been on our joy journey for 6 or 7 years, we get more creative with, you know, okay, I see a spot of joy, a spot where we could put joy. Let's put some here. But if you're thinking, Lisa, I'm tired, I'm busy, my email is full, I've got kids, right? All of those things that creep in that are real life challenges. If you've got a lot of that, which a lot of us do, right? Almost all of us, I encourage you to get just a list of things, whether it's on a piece of paper or a whiteboard in your bedroom. But I encourage you to get that list together because for me, it starts there. Now, some people, and again, in future, we'll talk more about, okay, now what? But for me, joy is something like if you're looking at your list thinking, well, Lisa, what do I put there? What really is joy? Now, for me, joy is just this idea that it makes you feel more alive, lighter or brighter. Sometimes I'll say, well, I need more, laughing and dancing in my life. And for me, maybe I've got exercise or things that bring me joy already like on my calendar. But if I can say, what would make me feel lighter, brighter, or more alive? Those were two things on my list for this current year. I haven't come up with my 2024, like what are some things that I'm after, but joy should be that feeling of there is a lot of crap in the world, but what would bring me just a little bit of joy and make it seem a little bit lighter and brighter? That's where you start. That's the component that really says, almost like the filter of like, is it going to bring me a little bit more energy or aliveness? If the answer is yes, you're like, yep, put it down. Now, we've talked just a little bit about like, what is it? And if you look in the definition, definition up in the dictionary, there's a ton of different ways to think about it. For me, that's how I do it. But when I think about why is joy so important, for me, it's this, well, we've got a ton of heavy things going on in the world, whether it's politics or just things that are going on in different countries, maybe your own, but it's also the stress that we have in our lives, whether it's kids or family or jobs or work. We have a lot of the heavy. And when you think about going negative in a bank account, right? Like you put money in, when you take that money out and you draw from it constantly, right? I'm feeling stressed. I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling burnt out. You don't have anything left to lean on. There's no like safety net of saying, okay, I've still got a little bit of currency in the bank. And so I often encourage people to think about joy as something that gets you from point A to point B, like the hard stuff. You need the joy in there as well, even if it's 10 minutes or 1 hour or 20 minutes here and there. That's what helps offset that negative balance of like heavy world stuff. Now, my husband and I don't do very many date nights just because our kids are in sports and he works kind of like long, odd hours. And so for us, date night sometimes happens from 3 to 4 p.m. on a Wednesday afternoon. Now you're going to look at your life and think, okay, how would date night look in my mind or in my world? Or maybe it's even like friend night where you're like, I have not seen this person in forever. And I encourage you to start thinking creatively. We realized that date night wasn't a thing. Like we weren't going to actually be able to do it. And so that 3 to 4 hour on Wednesdays, because I do a lot of speaking and workshops and trainings. And so on a day that I'm not speaking or training, and on the day that my husband isn't working his long shifts, 3 to 4 p.m. is perfect. Our kids walk in the door. We say, would you like some technology and a snack? And they say, why, yes, I would. And then we say, okay, we're going on a date. We'll see you in an hour. And it's the most fun hour of our week. It just reminds us that, yep, we're still like the fun, youthful, maybe people that we used to be. Now, we take our joy list and we say, okay, what can we put in this 1 hour from 3 to 4 p.m.? And oftentimes we drive to local coffee shops, order a cup of coffee, sit for 15, 20 minutes, and then drive home. It doesn't have to be fancy or creative. Sometimes we have a lake near where we live. Sometimes we'll just go sit there because it's a place to just be, to create joy. And I think that if you let like cortisol, that stress hormone enter into your body with all of the like heavy things in our lives, and that's like what's rushing through your your body continuously, and you forget like, gosh, I deserve a little bit of joy no matter what, because I need some serotonin and dopamine and all of those yummy chemicals to really offset it. Yeah, I think that's where the magic of joy happens. Now, I know that you're going to be thinking, Lisa, this sounds like sunshine and rainbows. And I'm going to say, okay, time out. Joy is so important. If anything, I encourage you to start thinking about like your joy check-in. Am I having enough joy? Could I add some? And in my book, as well as in future episodes, we'll talk about how do I battle those barriers, those things that pop up. Well, my kids are really little. I'm not sleeping at night. What do I do? I'm a senior level executive and I am constantly working. What do I do? You can have joy in your personal and professional life. And so we're going to dive into even more of that as we move forward. But I encourage you, if anything, to start looking at your joy levels and be thinking, is there an opportunity to grab more? Just start noticing. And if you get brave enough, start creating a list. I've got friends, and actually I keep a joy list in my phone so that I can just add things. If someone says, hey, last weekend we did this, I'm like, ooh, I'm going to add that to my list. But I also have the paper version too. If you've got kiddos and you're thinking, gosh, Lisa, I cannot think of another thing, like I am overstimulated, ask your kids. Sometimes I'll put a piece of paper in front of them and I'll say, guys, what should we do for joy? And you know what? They come up with some pretty fun things. If I say, what can we do that's free? If I say, what can we do on a Saturday night? They can usually pull a few ideas together, which then launches my mind to say, hi, thank you for taking care of that component. So start noticing your joy levels, start creating your joy list. And we're going to be back in future episodes to talk about, okay, where does it go? We're going to look back or sit back and look at your calendar and think, where should I put this? Now, if you like what you're hearing, please like and subscribe. I also have some free joy resources at lisaeven.com/free joy. So lisaeven.com/free joy. You can grab a joy starter worksheet. I've got a joy calendar and some resources. And if you are so inclined, grab the book on Amazon. Joy is My Job is the name of it. And it'll give you hints and tricks and really some mindset shifts to take advantage of. All right, we'll be back in future episodes, but thank you for joining me today on the Have Good Ripple Effect podcast. Thanks for listening. Visit lisaeven.com to learn about events and grab a copy of my book, Joy is My Job.